Hey folks, it's David with URAL Motorcycles, out behind URAL HQ today because the sun has decided to peek through the clouds and it's springtime, and I thought the cherry blossoms would bloom, but they didn't. So I'm out here by the woodpile to do the intro for this video where I'm going to go over installing the cliff-top dual USB charger that I have right here. I'm going to show you the work I did and then talk over that and explain how I did it and a couple options. Now, if you stick around till after the video, I'll show you how you can use this with the RAM mount that is self-charging, or you can wire it in the same way that we wire this in. But I'll explain that when I come back. Today we're going to start by lowering the center stand and lifting the bike. This will give you easier access to anything up under the fender, like the seat bolts. Remove the side panel and disconnect your battery with a 10mm wrench. My terminal, positive terminal, is on the left-hand side, so I just want to be careful when I'm disconnecting the battery. On newer bikes though, the terminals are swapped and your negative cable will be on this side. Now take a 17mm short socket and remove the nut from the front of the seat. Bench seats and solo seats will be the same, or 2/3 seats I should say. Now move to the back, and with a 5mm hex socket and ratchet or a hex key, you can remove the two Allen bolts up under the fender that hold the back of the bench seat. If you have a 2/3 seat, I believe the nuts going from the top, and there'll be two 13mm, or the bolts going from the top and the two 13mm nuts are on the bottom. Either way, with the bike lifted, you can get your hand in there and access it a little bit easier with the tire dropped. Remove the seat. Don't forget any rubber washers or anything that might be under there protecting the paint. Don't lose them. I covered the tank with a terry cloth towel to prevent scratching, and then I snipped the zip ties that were holding the wiring harness on the handlebars. And then I cleaned up all the dust and dirt that was accumulated there from months of riding. So I opened the package to see what was in there, and aside from the cliff top and the lead coming off the part itself, there wasn't much else. There was one ring terminal on the negative side and nothing on the positive side. So I undid all the screws on the top of the clamp that mounts the handlebar, and the bottom part actually houses the little nuts, so it made it easier. I didn't have to hold a bunch of stuff together. And then there's a little rubber piece to reduce the space on a 7/8 bar, which is what we have. So I snaked the wires underneath the existing handlebar harness. You may choose to do it differently, but I thought that this would help me make the transition into the existing harness and kind of bundle it all together. I put the reducer sleeve or reducer rubber underneath and held it with one hand, kind of flipped it up in there, pressed the clamp down, and then with my Phillips head screwdriver I started all the screws. And I just started them. I got them tight enough to hold in place, and I still wanted to be able to slip it around to adjust it where I wanted it. So here I'm kind of putting it where I anticipate I want it, and at an angle that would be facing me while I'm sitting on the seat. When I was happy with it, I snugged it up a little bit. And then I removed the terry cloth towel and I checked my clearance with the wires pulled up out of the way. If I turned lock to lock, made sure it wouldn't hit the tank. So here we're going to stuff this under the gas tank along the backbone on the tunnel of the tank. I tried to get the camera up under there so you can see there's quite a bit of room. You can see me in the back there waving at you. So I took a piece of baling wire and I literally slipped it in from the front and then guided it back on the path I wanted along the backbone in between the gas tank and the frame. And then I slipped it out between the two mounts centered at the back of the tank. Now at the front, I bundled my wires together and I looped the baling wire through the negative eyelet, and then I put a little tape around it. All I had was blue tape. Electrical tape would probably work better for this. And then I fed and fished the wires through the tank. Now, if you want to do a little bit tighter job, you could remove the tank, and I've made a video of removing the tank that I'll link, and that way you can get a little bit cleaner job done. But for this case here, I was pretending that I was doing like a garage repair or a shade tree repair, and so I made some concessions here to expedite the video and to speed things up for installation. Now you have a couple choices on how to connect this. You can use a quick connect or a Scotch lock or whatever. You'd want to connect the wire, the power wire, behind the fuse, not on the other side by the battery. For this video, I used a butt connector and added an inline fuse, so it would be a unique circuit. And this butt connector also has shrink tubing on it. So I crimped it and then heated the butt connectors to seal the shrink tubing around the wires. This would be probably the second middle choice. The best choice, obviously, I'm going to recommend soldering, but for expediency of the video, I didn't use that option. It would have taken longer to film. But Scotch locks would be my third choice, soldering would be my first choice, and then the butt connector, a good quality butt connector, would be my middle choice. So I routed the wires from the USB unit and put some zip ties on the handlebar and cinched everything down together. I bundled it all together, tried to make it look stock as possible. Clipped the ends off. And I rotated my bars again to make sure there was no interference or snagging on the wire harness on anything. I disconnected the negative terminal. You'll notice on my bike it's on the right side. On your bike it may be on the left side. Went ahead and connected the positive side. And I bundled all three of those eyelets together, and the little square nut on the bottom of the terminal post wouldn't grab it, so I put one of my clipped off zip ties underneath to lift it and got it to start threading in. A little tip for you there. And then you can put the little protective plastic cap back over the positive terminal. It's all set and bundled together and secure now. Make sure all your wires are out of the way of the Kickstarter or any other moving part down there. Now you can reconnect your negative terminal to the negative side of the cliff top. So there's only 2 wires here. It grabs the little square nut rather easy. And then I always follow up with a 10mm ratchet or wrench and give it an extra little snug. In the Harley world, battery terminals have a tendency to melt if they're not tight. Make sure all your wire looms are in a good position, and then pull the magnetic cap off the cliff top to make sure that it illuminates. That means power is going to the switch. Put your rubber protectors back down for your seat if they were on your bike, and put the seat back on the bike. And then I start with the rear hardware. So the little bolts in the back, I start with those because it's the hardest to line up the holes with the brass inserts on the seat base. If you have a 2/3 seat, it's probably still easier to start with the back. Get those tightened down. Then you can move to the front and put that nut and washer back on the seat post on the front. And then tighten it up with your 17mm short socket, or a wrench works, but socket's easier for me. When you're done with that, you can install your side panel or battery cover or whatever you choose to call it. There's so many names for this part. And you can push your bike off the center stand, and you are done, folks. Okay, now that you've seen the process that I used to wire in the dual USB charger, you could use the same process to wire in the Tough Charge by Ram Mount, which charges the phone while you're riding. As you can see, the unit itself has a USB on the end. You can connect the USB here and then run this all the way back to the battery if you so choose. This one is fused, but otherwise the process would be the same. This little box, the controller box that steps down the voltage, would actually wire to the frame somewhere, like the backbone with some zip ties. It's got grooves so the zip ties don't slip off. Or, when I was talking about options, if you want to make this mobile so it can go between like your car and your motorcycle or multiple motorcycles, you can wire the little switch, or you can zip tie the little switch, or just route it out of the way. That's the on-off switch. And then you can plug this into one of the outlets and then turn it on, and it starts charging the unit. There's no problem with wiring in both, but this just gives you a little bit more flexibility. And if you were to wire this in, it would be the same process as you saw before, only this one does come with a fuse, inline fuse, so you wouldn't have to add one as we recommend with the cliff top. So I'd just like to end by saying I do appreciate you all watching, and if you do enjoy this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And until next time, happy riding, and I'll talk to you later.